Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. I think I recognize everyone here mostly. Is anyone here that, oh, maybe in the back. What's your name? Next to Akaini. Actually, I didn't see all of you. Okay, so on each side of Akaini. If you can just say your name, and because I haven't met you before. Carmen, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Okay, welcome. So, yeah, I know everyone else. So we're continuing with the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam and kind of setting the scene for what this whole epic is going to be about, and the setup for who is in the audience receiving this Srimad Bhagavatam and who they're concerned about. So I want you to keep this in mind as we read these verses today, thinking about these two groups of people, two groups of souls, right? There's this group of souls who are presiding at the end of the previous age, which is what? What's the name of the previous age? Yeah, Dvapara Yuga. So they're on the brink, right? They're on the edge of between that and Kali-yuga. And this group of sages, they're gathered together at where? Naimisharanya, right? So there's this huge, we don't know the exact number, but there must have been many of them, large gathering. And they're thinking ahead to this Kali-yuga, which is about to come. And they're thinking about this group of souls who is going to be living in Kali-yuga and concerned already in advance for those souls, which are all of us and everyone around us right now. So there's these two groups that we're going to talk about and contrast, and also discuss what's happening right now in Kali-yuga. What are the traits of the people of Kali-yuga, including ourselves, and what do we do about it? How do we get out? Yeah, how do we help ourselves? So we'll start with, we're going to read texts 10, 16, and 22, and then we're going to come back to 10, okay? So to read it fully. So text number 10. O learned one, and this is the sages speaking. They're speaking to who? Do you remember? Sutta Goswami. So this great saint has entered their midst. It's like if you have a pearl necklace and at the end you have a diamond or something, right? So they're all beautiful gems, and in their midst there's somebody that they've chosen to share with them. So, O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. So humankind, right? That's what it means by men. Men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Okay? So, anyone feel like that's familiar? Well, pretty accurate description, right? Okay, so then text 16. Who is there, desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel, who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? So if you're desiring to escape this situation with all these vices of this age, why wouldn't you hear about the qualities of the Lord, right? The glories of the Lord? It's kind of a rhetorical question, and who wouldn't want this cake, right? It's like, so yeah, it's just another way of asking a question. And then finally, text 22, we think, this is a beautiful verse, it's actually a famous verse, we think that we have met your goodness meaning Sutta Goswami, by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. So it's actually a very heart-moving verse where they are feeling very grateful. Wow, this personality has entered their midst and is going to help them cross this difficult ocean of Kali. He is their captain, right? So there's this beautiful visual of the captain of the ship, and they're seeing their captain as Sutta Goswami. Okay, so in this last purport, Prabhupada talks about the traits of Kali-yuga, and he says that the lifespan gradually diminishes over time, and people gradually lose their memory. They gradually lose their finer sentiments, their strength, and their better qualities. So who knows here which canto of the Bhagavatam discusses these qualities of Kali-yuga? 12th canto, yeah? So a list, in the purport, Prabhupada says, a list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto. So all the anomalies, all the weird, strange things about this time period. So if you want to know more, you can go to the 12th canto, which describes, it's spoken earlier to us, right? But it's describing us as a group of people. It's very fascinating. Okay, so let's go back to 10. And we'll do the verse and the purport. Prayena payusha sabya Kalavasmin yuge jana Manda sumanda matayo Manda bhagya yupadruta Sumanda mataya means misguided. So there's all the different words here, and then mandaha, which is on the third line, means lazy. Right? So it's a description of the people of Kali-yuga. So it's not just those people out there, it's to be reflective and think, oh, how do I see these traits inside of my heart, right? It's not just like, oh, those are the descriptors of everyone outside of this building right now, right? So it's, just to reflect in our lives too. Prayena payusha sabya Kalavasmin yuge jana Manda sumanda matayo Manda bhagya yupadruta. Okay, please chant. Okay, thank you. So let's do the word for word together. Prayena, almost always, alpa, meager, ayusha, duration of life. Sabya, member of a learned society. Kalo, in this age of Kali, quarrel. Asmin, herein, yuge, age. Jana, the public. Manda, lazy. Sumanda mataya, misguided. Manda bhagya, unlucky. He, and above all, upadruta, disturbed. So above all, they're disturbed. Okay. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So if you had to sum it up, that's the descriptor. They're always disturbed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. When the sages of Naimisharanya analyzed the state of affairs of the people in this age of Kali, they foresaw that men would live short lives. In Kali-yuga, the duration of life is shortened, not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over-sense gratification, over-dependence on another's mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. Christina, would you like to read the next paragraph?
The people of this age are also very lazy, not only materially, but in the matter of self-realization. The human life is especially meant for self-realization. That is to say, man should come to know what he is, what the world is, and what the supreme truth is. Human life is a means by which the living entity can end all the miseries of the hard struggle for life in material existence, and by which he can return to Godhead, his eternal home. But due to a bad system of education, men have no desire for self-realization. Even if they come to know about it, they unfortunately become victims of misguided teachers.
Thank you. And then, Brihad Mardanga, would you sing, not sing, would you read the last paragraph?
In this age, men are victims not only of different political creeds and parties, but also of many different types of sense gratificatory diversions, such as cinemas, sports, gambling, clubs, mundane libraries, bad association, smoking, drinking, cheating, pilfering, bickerings, and so on. Their minds are always disturbed and full of anxieties due to so many different engagements. In this age, many unscrupulous men manufacture their own religious faiths, which are not based on any revealed scriptures, and very often people who are addicted to sense gratification are attracted by such institutions. Consequently, in the name of religion, so many sinful acts are being carried on. In the name of religion, so many sinful acts are being carried on that the people in general have neither peace of mind nor health of body. The student brahmachari communities are no longer being maintained, and householders do not observe the rules and regulations of the grihastha ashram. Consequently, the so-called vanaprasthas and sannyasis who come out of such grihastha ashrams are easily deviated from the rigid path. In the Kali-yuga, the whole atmosphere is surcharged with faithlessness. Men are no longer interested in spiritual values. Material sense gratification is now the standard of civilization. For the maintenance of such material civilizations, man has formed complex nations and communities, and there is a constant strain of hot and cold wars between these different groups. It has become very difficult, therefore, to raise the spiritual standard due to the present distorted values of human society. The sages of Naimisharanya are anxious to disentangle all fallen souls, and here they are seeking the remedy from Srila Sutta Goswami.
Thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So these great sages, they could be spending their time in other ways. But here they are thinking ahead to this group of us, all these souls that are coming in the future, and feeling concern about them, feeling anxious. The word anxiety is used here. The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. So yesterday, Kalakanta Prabhu was talking about anxiety, right? This tendency to get preoccupied about what's going to happen ahead. And it's usually a characteristic of the mode of passion. It's not being in the present moment, right? It's not being in the mode of goodness. It's like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? And oh my gosh. So then never being fully here right now. He was talking about that book, Be Here Now, right? So this is very interesting. Here we're seeing the same word used to describe what's happening in the minds of these sages. They're very anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. They are anxious to disentangle all fallen souls, and so they're seeking the remedy from Sutta Goswami. So just like we would be seeking a remedy from a doctor, I'm anxious, I have this, like a strange spot on my skin, I want to go get it checked out, right? So there's some anxiety propels someone to seek a remedy. So here they're going, okay, well, the person who will have the answer, the remedy for our anxiety is this great saint, Sutta Goswami. So it's very encouraging, actually, because we were talking about anxiety being a detriment to spiritual life yesterday, a quality that's actually disruptive, right? Our own material anxiety. And yet we're seeing here that it can be applied in spiritual life. That same quality of thinking ahead, worrying about what's going to be for the lives of these people, like you would for your own children. How are they going to, if you know that, let's say you know there's going to be a war, you're thinking, how are my kids going to get through that, one day, right? So similarly, they're worried about these souls just as a parent would be for their children. And yet it has a very different quality to it than a material anxiety. It's completely transcendental. So they're in the moment with this great sage, and they're doing that thing of jumping ahead to the future, right? Here we are. Oh, they're not in Kali-yuga yet, but they're like, what about all the people in Kali-yuga? So they're doing that anxiety, the anxious behavior, but for a spiritual purpose. And so this is a reminder to us that we can dovetail anything, any of our qualities, any predispositions we have, we can use that to help us in spiritual life and to help others in spiritual life. So if we are anxious by nature, if we have a predisposition to want to think ahead, we can get some inspiration from these souls and think, well, how could I use this tendency to better my life and to better others' lives? So let me think ahead for others. How could I, and that's what we do with prepping festival events, right? Like, how am I going to help more souls come to Krishna? And so we're thinking ahead. What can I do? And tapping into that quality of anxiety, which is, what are some of what do you think about when you think of anxiety? What are the traits of that? What is the quality of anxiety? Yeah.
Like sloppiness, like restlessness.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm just thinking in neutral terms. So sloppiness, it could be a quality of it. It could also be like a negative characteristic. But someone could also be obsessively not sloppy and anxious, right? So, yeah. But what was the second word? Restlessness, yeah. Yes. So that's a kind of a trait. Yeah, there's a sort of quality of like, I'm on edge. I want to, like a restlessness. Yeah, that's a really good one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Bria Merganga, did you want to say something? Restlessness. Okay. Yeah, Christine.
Sort of an obsessive mode of thinking, like kind of being very single-mindedly absorbed in something.
Yes. Yeah. So that obsessive quality, going over and over and over, right? So who here has ever felt anxious? I'm curious. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, so pretty much all of us in Kali-yuga, right? Who here has never felt anxious? Except for our temple president. Yeah, so we've all experienced that state of that obsessive thinking. Your mind latches onto an idea or a thought or something you're feeling fear about, and then it just repeats and repeats, right? It's like, unless something or someone can help us, like, it's like those I don't know, we used to have these like board games where you could kind of create the gears. You put like a gear and then it turns another gear and another gear. So it's like, once it's there in the groove, it's just like until you change the direction of it, right? I don't know what you call those, but do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe, yeah. Yeah. So that idea that it's obsessive, it's restless, what else? Anything else come to mind with just a characteristic of the quality of anxiety? How do you, yeah, hello? Uncomfortable. Okay, yeah, uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something along the lines of like not feeling content,
Yeah, not content. Yeah.
which can be like a motivator in spiritual life.
Yeah. Yes. So Gopal said uncomfortable, Lo said not content. So those kind of go together. So a little bit of a feeling of unsettledness, right? Like something's not. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Trisha? Or not Trisha?
I was gonna like physical like change would be like sweaty palms, accelerated heart rate, like constantly looking around, like what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So hypervigilance, right? Looking around, kind of having a physiological experience. Yeah. Urgency, yeah, that's a really good word. Yep. I need to do something. And this is why anxiety can be so crippling in our experience, in our body, in our mind. If we're not able to do anything about our circumstances and we're just stuck with the thoughts, it's like this urgent feeling, like fight or flight, but there's nothing really, there's no way to kind of get out of it, then it can be very, very intense experience. Yeah.
It's about like all these things remind me of like Kamsa. When Krishna was about to be born, he was just obsessed, like constantly thinking, very vigilant, was urgently thinking what to do. He
Yeah.
was having all these characteristics.
Is it on?
Oh, I'm not sure, but
Okay, sure.
but because he was anxious about what's going to happen to him, he showed all these different tendencies.
Yeah, that's a good example. So Kamsa he wanted to kill Krishna, right? And he was on a mission to do that. It was based out of fear. Oh no, Krishna's going to kill me, so I got to kill Krishna first. And constant rumination, right? Rumination, like, and he started to see Krishna everywhere. Oh my God, is that Krishna? Is that when? And he started his whole consciousness became flooded with Krishna. He became Krishna conscious, but from a negative introduction. Like he came in wanting to avoid Krishna and then became consumed and obsessed with Krishna, and therefore he became quote unquote Krishna conscious. We hopefully want to get to that space with love and not with anonymity, right? He was fully consumed with hate and all the negative qualities. So yeah, so we have all these traits. We have the restlessness, the unsettledness, not content. What were the other ones? Hypervigilance, yeah. Discomfort, urgency, yeah. Yeah, unsettled thoughts. So all those things together create that kind of experience of anxiety. So now think about how the word anxiety here is used to describe these great saints who are anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. So in order to be anxious for someone else, you first have to be content within yourself. Because if you're not safe and content within yourself, then you're going to be consumed in, oh, what about me? I got to take care of me, right? So in order, they say that on the airplanes, you first have to put on your own oxygen mask. You can't be flapping around and, trying to gasp for air and also help your little baby, right? You're not going to be able to do both things. So the given here is that these great devotees are not concerned or anxious about their own well-being. So that's the given, right? Because they're able to be anxious for the spiritual improvement of others. So you all know that hierarchy of needs, right? That in psychology, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so the basic things of like food, water, oxygen are the things that we need to to thrive and live in this world. And then from there, it gets finer and finer, subtler and subtler things. So if these great devotees are already content and at peace in their own journeys and their own lives, they're not distressed by how am I going to find enjoyment? What am I going to do in this world? How am I going to, right? It's not selfish. They're not consumed in their own futures. Then they have space and energy to think about the well-being of others. So it goes hand in hand. When we fill our spiritual cup, like they are doing, they're inquiring from other sadhus, they're sitting together discussing Krishna, they're filling their cups, they're complete, they're peaceful, their mind and senses are controlled and at peace, then they have this energy and space and desire to think of others. So we can think that in our lives too, anytime we're filling our cup with Krishna, it's not we might think, oh, it's just selfish, I'm always thinking about my own spiritual journey, but actually it allows us to then have that bandwidth to think of others and to share with others and to get such a taste ourselves that we want to, it's a spillover. Yes, I want to share now with others. I can't just keep this to myself, it's too good, right? It's too amazing. So the second thing I want to mention is we're thinking about these two groups, right? There's a group, I drew a little sketch like for myself, like a little group of souls that are the sages, they're peaceful. They're the opposite of what we were saying of being discontent, right? They're content, they're peaceful, they're self-controlled, Krishna conscious, and then they're concerned for the future. Then on the other side, we have this, on the other side of the change of yugas, we have this group of us. Here we are, Gainesville, 2023, full of worry, full of fear, forgetful, tendency to be deluded, right? Tendency to be misguided, unlucky. Oh yeah, tripping over things, bumping our toes, right? Like, it's just like, kind of like if you think of those cartoons, like back in the day, they used to have, they used to do this more back in the day where the cartoon character would be like walking, let's say this is like a mountain and a cliff, and then it's like, and then the cartoon character will be like in the air, like, ah, like flapping around like wildly before then suddenly like plummeting, right? So it's like, maybe they do that, they still do that now, but I just think about those old drawings that are kind of rudimentary. So, so that idea of like, just full of like, wah, unsteady and unlucky, right? Like, oh no, someone fell into a hole. So here we are, and it's actually very moving. If you think time travel, thinking these souls were there way back in time, and they were concerned about us today. So somehow we're connected to these souls. We're like, we are the recipients of their well wishes. So they are well wishers to us, even though they're not currently alive or present in front of us right now. They were well wishers to us. And so wherever those souls are, because no one ever dies, those souls remain our well wishers. And I was thinking how moving it will be one day when we have perfected our spiritual journey. We will encounter innumerable well wishers. Can you imagine a room full? Imagine just a room full of people looking at you and wishing you well, just sending you like prayers and good wishes, how that can feel so moving and so encouraging. Right now, we're conditioned, so we don't know who in the past, we can't see everyone who is a well-wisher. We don't know the number of people who have prayed for us and wished us well and wanted us to be where we are right now today. So we might think very often in Kali-yuga, this is one of the illusions of Kali-yuga, is to think that we're these solitary beings, we ought to figure it all out ourselves, we're these like lone rangers. Kalakanta Prabhu mentioned this yesterday also as a mode of passion qualities. I have to figure this out. It's all about, taking care of myself, self-preservation, me. So that feeling of I'm all alone in this, right? But if you think, actually, I'm here today, right now, in this moment, because of the mercy of so many souls that came before me. And really let that sink in. Wow, it wasn't just me like trying to get here. Like it was, I'm a byproduct, I'm a product of mercy, right? And that makes us feel less alone, because I'm sure we've all struggled at times with feeling alone in this world, feeling like, oh, it's all up to me. I got to make this happen. I see everyone around me, they seem to be doing fine, but I'm struggling in my spiritual life. I'm all alone, right? But just tap into that feeling of, wow, I have so many people, so many well-wishers. The whole sampradaya that I'm part of is wishing me well. And it's not that they just wished me well back then, like, oh, they kind of had this abstract idea and they were, wishing me. They are right now in this moment wishing me well. There's a whole universe of people wishing me well. The spiritual world, they're all well-wishers to us. They all want to help us. So anytime we're feeling lonely, you can just remember that. There was these great saints, even before I was born, way before I was born in this life, who were wishing me well and asking questions to Sutta Goswami to figure out, how can we help them? How are we going to help these people who are going to come? So in addition to helping us feel comforted, actually, if we think about our own lineage, right, we have every day, we have the opportunity to pray to our well-wishers. They're there, right there on the altar, and of course, among us as well. So we're never alone. And one quality of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan was that the reason that everyone loved them so much is that they were well-wishers to others. They always wanted everyone to be happy. So there's that. So we can take that with us and go, okay, wow, we're not alone. We have this incredible group of people that we're grateful for, and that one day we will be able to thank in person. Imagine that, like, thank you so much for being a well-wisher for my soul and for my journey. And then the second thing is that there's this characteristic of this group, that this group of saints is they have qualities and characteristics that I would like to imbibe. So how can I do that? How can I tap into that? Here's a way to think about it. Sometimes they have, let's say like a workshop or training for something, and they have levels, right? So they'll have the entry level foundational course that you can do, everyone can join. Then they have the like elite, right? After you've done all this training, they have something maybe on their website, it'll say advanced level, right? And you can't go to the advanced level until you've done the preliminaries. But what that advanced level of people, let's say they're doing something with character development. And so they're this group of people that has done a lot of work with their character. It's appealing. It's like, oh, I would love to join. I would love to be part of this group of people who have advanced themselves and who have higher consciousness, for example, right? But I can't get there until I've done these preliminary trainings. But the aspiration is I want to get there one day because I want to be part of that group who are at this higher level, right? So I want to be part of a neighborhood where everyone there has this quality of compassion for others. I want to join that group. Instead of being in a group where everyone is so selfish and self-absorbed, and we're all just here for ourselves, right? So that desire of wanting to join this group, this kind of essence of people, can be a motivator for us in our spiritual life. So what do I need to do? What qualifications do I need to get? What training do I need to get to be able to qualify myself to get to that neighborhood, to get to that association, to that level of company? So that's just a way to think about it. My dad was the one who came up with that, the higher neighborhood. I like that idea, just thinking, let's say if there's like a really elite neighborhood with certain qualifications, everyone there has to be a certain way, like a generous, kind, like caring. Like there's no neighborhoods that define them that way, like by personality traits. But I'm just saying, if there was, wouldn't you want to be part of it? Like, well, I want to go there where everyone's a good person and kind and intelligent and everything. So we can think that too in a subtle way. There are these planes of consciousness, and I want to join the higher planes of consciousness. So what do I need to do today to get there? Okay, so one other point, and then we can open up for discussion. How do we get out of this age of Kali? So we have all of these challenges, right? So what do we do? So in the second two verses we read, it was described that, actually it's at the end of one purport. Learned men must be cautious of this age, and if they want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. So we get to do what they've done. In order for us to get out, here's the solution. We also have to accept him as our captain of our ship. The ship is, and what is the ship? The ship is the message of Lord Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. So the book we have, it's really special. We have books nowadays, like in the past, they would have maybe leaves or something. But we have these beautiful books, right? And then we think, wow, this is the ship. The ship is to like absorb in that book, get onto that, like not literally, but to absorb in the message of the book as the ship. And then the captain of that ship is Sutta Goswami and our teachers, our gurus. So the way to get out of this distressful situation with Kali-yuga, to help our minds that are always floundering around and anxious, is to find a qualified guru to help us traverse the ocean of Kali-yuga with Bhagavatam. So what thoughts come up to you? What questions do you have? What are you thinking about with this discussion? I'll just briefly share what we talked about, just to remind you, because in Kali-yuga we all forget things. So, so we talked about how the characteristics of Kali-yuga, right? People, the qualities of that group of people in Kali-yuga and what we struggle with, and then how there's this group of well-wishers that predated us who are wishing us well, and how we're surrounded by well-wishers that we might not even remember. We might sometimes feel alone, but we can remind ourselves, like, I'm not alone. I have so many loving people in my life, souls that care about me, and one day I will meet all of them and I'll be around them. And then this motivator that I would like to join that kind of group, that mentality. I want to also become someone who is compassionate for others, who thinks less about myself, more about others. And that is a motivator for our spiritual life. And then finally, we talked about how the way to get out of this situation is to follow Sutta Goswami with the Bhagavatam and also have a spiritual teacher. Yeah. Yes, Govinda. Christina?
I was just thinking how comforting it is to know that we all have a very nice captain, Srila Prabhupada. He's given us all instructions and all we have to do is follow, and it's just so comforting because he's such a good captain and we know that he's very exalted personality. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and his purports help us to understand the words of Sutta Goswami. Like he's our captain, right? He's the captain of the captain. I don't know what you call that, but yeah, he's the head of our ship. There's that beautiful painting that one devotee drew, Prabhupada, the captain of the ship, and then the ship going across the ocean of Kali-yuga. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this wonderful class. Your discussion of neighborhoods reminded me that I've spent a lot of my life, especially my professional life, thinking about communities, intentional communities. Because my first job in the game industry was community manager. And back then in 2009, that was a pretty new job title, like online community manager. That was just kind of starting to be a thing. So, and I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, where people, back in the 60s and also today experiment a lot with like, okay, let's have this like, warehouse or, some kind of living space, some kind of like, maybe a small neighborhood where we have specific rules and a specific culture, and then we kind of admit people based on that culture and see if they fit. So there's like this whole scene where people are geeking out and thinking about how do we construct communities to be really functional and to be what we want to be. And so I think about how, like what Jai Shri Shri Gaura Nitai. And then you can even see this in terms of like clubs at UF or or some kind of university where the students are kind of in charge of creating this, right? There's always this drive to create these communities, to try to envision a community where people are enough like you that you can relate to them, but also different enough from you so that you can aspire to be like them. You can say like, oh, this person is different from me in certain ways, and I like those ways, and I want to kind of like learn from those ways. So, but yeah, so what I kind of experienced both in gaming and in San Francisco was that when you're trying to create intentional communities on the mundane platform, there are all kinds of terrible problems, and it's very, very difficult, even if you have a lot of money and a lot of good intentions. So yeah, it really illustrated to me once I kind of came here and started understanding more about intentional communities and Krishna consciousness, especially like Krishna House, that without that transcendental direction and goal, and that vision, that it's very, very hard and pretty much impossible to have like a functional community. And even in Krishna consciousness, it's very difficult because this is Kali-yuga. Yeah, so thank you for that discussion.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was thinking how that reminded me of that analogy of a lake and where you're throwing pebbles in. And so if everyone's, in the material world, we all have our own interests, so we're all throwing our pebble in, and then it's creating this chaos of ripples bumping into each other. But the more that we line up with the one purpose, like the intention you're talking about, the more then, things the ripples are all in the same place, coming out nicely when we're all, and it's hard even in spiritual community to get there, but we're at least more closely there than some other situations. Yeah.
I just wanted to share, it's a very basic point, but if we want to take advantage of all these well-wishers in our lives, we have to follow their instructions. So to extend the metaphor, if you're on a ship and there's a captain, there's quite a lot of things going on and a lot of orders being given and different tasks that have to be, like especially if you're sailing or if there's stormy wind, there's a lot of instructions and orders going around. And to extend the point even further, most of these well-wishers, they also want us to follow a certain etiquette within our devotional community. Like Prabhupada really wants all of us to cooperate. And part of that means to know who are your juniors, who are your seniors, and to take advice from them and try and follow their instructions as well. Of course, there's a fine line. You should never be exploited, and you should never follow something that is just perpendicularly opposed to your own values or whatever. But, in small ways throughout the day, many times devotees are pointing things out to us and, giving us guidance. And I really think we should meditate deeply on what that means and just try and follow, because it makes a big difference in how much mercy flows into our lives.
I like that, especially the way you ended that. It makes a difference in how much mercy flows into our lives. Yeah, beautifully put. So following the instructions of our well-wishers, because we can trust them, we can settle into, yes, they're giving us good instructions. So I can relax and just follow along with their outline, their guidelines for us. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Do you want to hear a poem that I wrote about this class?
Sure.
All right.
We like your poems.
Sea of deterioration to represent the Kali age, the ship with which we'll cross, driven by a mighty sage. Spiritual anxieties being confirmed by our defective qualities. Selflessness helps to tap into where our minds ought to be. I fix on improving our senses, filling our cup, realizing the laziness that plagues us, and sitting back up, inheriting the genuine concern and well wishes of our ancestors, like the tree dropping seeds were the past saints' investors. It's no wonder we strive to imbibe their magnificent ways, to thank them with sincerity and join in on their omniscient praise.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah. That's amazing how fast you did that. Because I felt like you were looking most of the time up here, so I didn't see you writing. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Lo?
There's this song by Vishnu Janaswamy that's like don't know what it's called, but he sings like, "We've got a good ship, we got a good captain." I don't remember exactly what it's called, but like in Isha Upanishad and in this verse, they really talk about how we're really set up through the mercy of our lineage just to like have the ability to cross the ocean of suffering. And I also wanted to mention that anxiety is like, for me, is very much fear-based self-centeredness. And I'm grateful for it because oftentimes it's a tool to bring me back to mode of goodness. Often because I have like behaviors that hinder devotional service or like subtle thought patterns. And so the anxiety is a good thing because it shows me like when I'm out of balance.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it can be a barometer for where we're at. I felt it very distinctly at one point in my life where I was consciously turning from Krishna. It was when I was kind of near the end of my college experience. I was like, I need to figure this out for myself, and I kind of just took some space. And I remember that the anxiety I experienced that year, whatever time period that was dramatically worsened because of like, I don't want to seek shelter there. I'm going to like kind of turn more towards the material. And then the level, it was just like clear barometer of my spiritual experience or lack of. Yeah. Oh, wow, there's so many people over here.
I was just reflecting that even, Prabhupada often emphasizes that we pray Krishna not for our daily bread and, we pray Krishna for service. But also, Prabhupada talks about how, that we are dependent on Krishna. And so whatever it is, material or spiritual or material, we could always pray to Krishna, actually. It's actually a sign of surrender to depend on Krishna. And it's amazing, even when we have small material problems and when we pray to Krishna, actually, or just go to Krishna, like, Krishna, I have no clue what to do, and this is really stressful. And it could just be, like, really something small even, or quote-unquote, not spiritual, but actually just our act of depending on Krishna, that actually makes it transcendental, and then, oftentimes Krishna just like, Krishna magic happens and it gets resolved.
Yeah, instead of thinking, well, that's too mundane to turn to Krishna for, so I'm gonna try to figure it out on my own, we can go to Krishna at every level, even if it's a more basic anxiety. We can pray to Krishna about our anxiety too. He can help us with that. And we can also go to, we can get actual help with therapists and so on if we need to, if it's debilitating. Oh, yes.
Hi, Krishna. This might be like more of like a personal thing. I'm not sure if anyone else will be able to relate, but when you spoke about how we have so many well-wishers and there's a room full of well-wishers, that kind of brought up some anxiety for me, in that there's so many people to disappoint if I don't do it right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts about that or...
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, like a room full of people waiting and lots of pressure. The good thing about all these well-wishers is they're so compassionate that they're not going to be the berating, critical, judgmental people that we might fear of disappointing, because somehow early in life we might have learned that if I disappoint people, then I get a certain kind of response from them or a rejection from them or something that triggers that anxiety of like, I need to make sure they're pleased. But these great saints are there through thick or thin. They're, when you get married, right? They're through happiness and distress. You're promising that. So what to speak of spiritual well-wishers who are there for our soul? They're going to stand by us through thick or thin, and they're not going to judge. They know that they're talking about, wow, Kali-yuga is so intense. How are these souls going to deal with this? This is going to be so hard for them. So they're feeling that in advance. So if we are struggling and they see that, they're not personally disappointed and thinking, okay, I'm gonna pull back my affection or something like that, or hold back, you know. They're gonna continue to be there and acknowledge, yes, this is hard. They'll know what you're going through in Kali-yuga. What can our mindset be? Just one day at a time. It really helps. You know, one day at a time. And then if we fall, we pick ourselves back up and be gentle with ourselves the way we would be with a child, because our mind is like a child. So sometimes if we get too heavy with it, it can retaliate, right? So just go, okay, I fell down. Don't worry so much about the fall down, just get back up. And, I'm not meaning literally falling down necessarily in a dramatic way. I'm just meaning like, struggling, right? Struggling with the mind or whatever. Yeah. They're gentle with us, so we can also be gentle and compassionate with ourselves. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. That was really blissful to talk about, and I wish you all a good week. And Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Captain of our ship ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.